इस्लाम एट अ ग्लांस इज ब्रॉट टू यू बाय जिंदगी हक है और मौत बर हक। अर्रियान मुस्लिम फ्यूनरल सर्विसेज काबिल एतमाद और शरीयत के ऐन मुताबिक बरसा बरस से हफ्ते के 7 दिन खिदमत में मसरूफ़ अमल। फ़ोन 3472590055।
अस्सलामु अलैकुम वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुह। Alhamdulillah ahda wassalatu wassalamu man la nabiyya ba'da. Dear viewers, today the topic at hand is jihad, terrorism and violence. Unfortunately, through the efforts of the foes of Islam, these three things are used as synonyms today. So if you call one Islam, that means terrorism. If you call terrorism, that means Islam. And same is true with the violence. That is the gift of the foes of Islam to this world. The fact of the matter is that this jihad in Islam is a very noble concept. And one has to understand that without such concept in humanity, it is not possible to keep this world on track. It is not possible to keep it a place suitable for living of human being. And unfortunately, it is not something new. Like, for example, some people will think that this kind of propaganda about equating Islam to terrorism or violence, it started in, some people will say maybe after 9/11, but that's not true. It started much before, and I will take you through a little history to make my point. And it was much after the sword of Islam has already rusted, and the time of the conquest of the Islamic armies around the world has already gone for a long time, and the sun of the Muslim civilization has already set. It is at that time, somewhere in the 20th century, the propaganda of equating Islam with violence has actually started. And ironically, the people who started this are no one else but the nations, the people from the nations who were themselves involved in violence and bloodshed all over the world. I'm talking about the colonial powers of the West, who have usurped the land of the poor nations and put to sword their people with no mercy, and taken over their wealth due to being powerful. And there was no place for a weaker nation to exist in the world at that time. So this propaganda is coming from them at that time, where they are already involved themselves in all of these crimes against humanity, about a religion or a concept that has lost its glory. And if it would have been a right time, for example, to do this propaganda, it should have been the time when the Islam was spreading all around the world. And as I said, that its sword was not rusted. But it didn't happen then. And even afterwards, those times were not remembered as such for many centuries, but only in the time when the colonial powers have established their agenda, gone through their agenda in the world. That's when it started. And I will give you the example, or actually an incident that happened in the occupied India, or the colonized India, when the British were here. At that time, there was a murder of a Hindu leader from the movement of Shuddhi, which is a movement that is meant to convert the people back to Hinduism who have, on their choice, by their choice, have left Hinduism. So the people who converted out to any other any other religion, this movement was for bringing them back to Hinduism. So one of the leader of that movement was killed by a Muslim. So there was a lot of hue and cry all over India, and not only over India, but also in England, because we were being ruled by the English at that time, that Islam is a barbaric religion and it teaches violence to its followers and all that. Following that propaganda, there were two kind of responses from the Muslims, who were dominated by the British at that time, and at other places by other European nations. So the response was mostly to two extremes. Some of them, under the influence of the dominant power, they say, no, this is all wrong, the jihad is not even part of Islam, and things like that. The other took the line and went to the extreme and used this concept in a wrong way. This is the same situation almost which exists today. So what happened at that time, that there was a young man of 23 or in his early 20s, and he was attending a gathering in which one of the leaders of that time, Muslim leader with the name Muhammad Ali Jawhar, was making a speech, and he was attending that speech, this young man, and his name was Syed Abul Ala Maududi. And when he was attending this lecture or this speech, he was listening to that speech. In that, Maulana Muhammad Ali said that whatever is being spread against Islam and against the concept of jihad in Islam, because of what happened in the near past, if I would have time from the Khilafah movement that he was involved in, then he said that I would have written a comprehensive book on the topic of jihad in Islam. But unfortunately, I don't have time from other important things that I have to do. So this young man, Sayyid Maududi, at that time, he said, I will do this work. And over the course of some years, he finished an excellent masterpiece on the subject of jihad in Islam. Actually, the name of that book in Urdu is Al-Jihad fil Islam. And what I have in my hand is a translation of that book, an English translation which has just last year became available. And fortunately, I was part of the translation. The translation was made by my elder brother, Wing Commander late Rafatullah Shah, and I edited this book. May Allah accept our efforts. But this is an excellent material to go over today when we are facing with similar situation, where the propaganda against this concept, this noble concept of jihad, is going all over, and we are listening to that and being influenced and being influenced by this propaganda, and from our responses from the Muslims also, as I said, at that time was at the two ends. Today as well, the same thing. Under the influence of this propaganda, some of the people started saying that this jihad is not part of Islam, as if, and the others were putting everything that is not even that cannot be considered as jihad, and that sometimes is actually violence, and they started regarding as jihad. So this was two reactions. But as I said, that this book is a balanced treatment of the topic of the subject, and one should go and read to these marvelous words of Sayyid Abul Ala Maududi. Jihad in Islam is regarded as very high, so much so that it is in the hadith we see that the reward that is for the mujahid who make this struggle. Jihad means making a struggle, striving hard in the path of Allah. They say that when somebody travels, when somebody walks in this path, and his feet are dirted with the dirt, they are dirty, those feet will never see the fire of Jahannam. Or the eyes who have spent the night looking for the enemies so they be defended against their attacks, those eyes will never see the fire of Jahannam. So these are, and many other hadiths and many of the other ayahs of Quran, and it is regarded very high, as I said. In one of the ayah from Surah At-Tawbah, I say that aja'altum, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, aja'altum siqayat al-hajj wa imarat al-masjid al-haram kaman amana billahi wal yawmil akhir wa jahada fi sabilillah la yastawuna indallah. Allah is saying that those who think that the giving water to the pilgrims and having the authority or the leadership of the place of the house of Allah, that is Kaaba, they think having those positions is more than the position of a person who believes in Allah and Yawm al-Akhirah and makes jihad in his way. Then he said, no, these two things are not equal. And he said that the later ones are the people who has higher station. Ulaika humul faizun. They have the higher station than the other. So he is telling that jihad is so important, and we will see that if this doesn't, if it doesn't happen, if it would not happen, then the whole world will be chaotic. It will have no mercy for the poor, and the people who have power will always try to exploit the poorer and weaker people, and the nations similarly, the weaker nation will be exploited by the powerful, as it happened in the history. So if we see this from the 2 point of views, one is if you look at the individuals. As an individual, the Muslims are from various ahadiths and from the ayahs of Quran, we are taught that we need to speak up against evil. We cannot be naive to be, just sitting quiet and looking all kind of evil happening around us. Even as an individual, we have a duty. Prophet ﷺ said that if you see an evil and you have a power in your hand to remove it, then remove it. And if you don't have that power, then at least speak against it. And then if you don't have that power even, then feel bad in your heart against it. And if you don't, this is the last stage of Iman, that you at least feel bad in your heart. So see how we are told to always use whatever power we have against the evil, to establish haqq or good. And it is not only for your own self, that nothing bad is happening to me, so I will be quiet and enjoy my life. No. Even if someone is mistreated, some poor guy, some weaker person is mistreated by someone else, then you are obliged to help the weaker one. Yeah, this is so many hadiths of Prophet ﷺ. We don't have time to go over the subject in detail, but I just wanted to establish the connection between the individual, the instructions that are given to the individual, and then what is true for the collection of people. It may be nation, it may be a collection of Muslims or a collection of good people. For them also, the duty of jihad is there. That means if one is the defensive war or defensive jihad, that is, if some enemy or someone with ulterior motives is attacking you or is planning to attack you, so in the defense of yourself and your nation, it is obligatory to get into the battlefield and try to stop the enemy from doing what he is planning to do, to usurp your land or to spill the blood of innocent people and destroy, just spreading strife and turmoil in the land. So you are supposed to get up and resist. That is one part of the one kind of war. And some of us, again, under the propaganda of the foes of Islam, they say that only defensive warfare is allowed and no other war is acceptable in Islam. It is not true. Like the individuals, we are not supposed to be only for ourselves. Same way as nations, as a collection of people, we are not only for the defense of ourselves, that my country, my nation is safe. I don't care what happens to the other poor and weaker nations. That is not what Islam teaches us. It teaches us to always be ready to help such people whose rights are being violated, whose land are being usurped, and who usurped, and their wealth is being taken over by the stronger parties in the world. So we are always encouraged, and we are obliged to be ready to go out and fight with them to save them from such kind of treatment. So this is the concept of jihad. And as I said, it is very noble. Without that, there will be chaos, and there will be killing, and there will be exploitation all over. But now coming to that terrorism and violence, as I said, that in these times, it does happen sometimes that some of our people, without considering the conditions that are needed, that need to be fulfilled for something to be called jihad, they don't sometimes think about that, and they just call something which is not part of jihad and which is actually sometimes violence as jihad, which is completely wrong. So we have to be very careful when we call something jihad, then it has to have all these conditions fulfilled. And the conditions are not only that there is certain threshold and after that the jihad will start and you will be free to do everything. No, even during the engagements, there are certain rules and regulations that has to be followed. It is not like even in the wars, the innocent people like the children or the women or the people who are people of worship, they should not be touched. The crafts should not be harmed. There should be minimum destruction possible. It's not like that you are free to do whatever you want to do when the jihad is declared. There are certain rules and regulations that has to be followed. But unfortunately, even among the Muslims, there are some examples that are not so good. But that gives a bad name to the whole concept of jihad. Jihad is very noble, but it has to go through a proper process, and it needs some conditions to be met to be called jihad. And without this concept, then this concept exists actually in all the religions. It is not that it's only Islam who is propagating this concept of jihad. All the religions have the concept of just war. So even the religions who say that if somebody hits you on one cheek, you offer the other cheek to him, in practical, they were also the followers of those religions. Such religions are also, they also found that this is needed. Without that, the societies cannot survive, cannot prosper. So they also adopted some, the concept of just war. So whether it's Hinduism, it's Judaism, it's Christianity, or any other religion, or the modern world. Of course, in the modern world, we have seen wars which has more destruction, and they like the world wars, World War I, World War II, without restriction and without any sense of humanity. They have millions of people have been killed in these wars, and then look at how Islam has controlled its followers even during the times of rage and these wars and all that. So the destruction has to be minimized. But unfortunately, these times in the world, those noble concepts are being labeled as violent concepts, and those who are committing violence, even today, big number of casualties during wars and conflict, they are all treated as the noblest nations. The fact of the matter is that whoever has the pen of such people has more power, who has the sword in their other hand. So that's what is happening, because they have this sword. Whatever they write, it become popular. It become the talk of the town, and it is being accepted even by those who are being unnecessarily, who are religion being unnecessarily and illogically criticized for being violent and equating Islam with terrorism and all that. So these concepts have to be studied in detail by the people, by the Muslims, so they can also understand what is in there, what are the other religions, what kind of similar concepts they have, and the message has to be somehow passed on to the others, or for the people who think of Islam as a violent religion, wrongfully so. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المؤمنين والمؤمنات. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
इस्लाम एट अ ग्लास वॉज ब्रॉट टू यू बाय जिंदगी हक है और मौत बर हक, अर्रियान मुस्लिम फ्यूनरल सर्विसेज, काबिल एतमाद और शरीयत के ऐन मुताबिक बरसा बरस से हफ्ते के 7 दिन खिदमत में मसरूफ़ अमल। फ़ोन 347-259-0055।